Hello everyone, welcome to the video. My name is Maze, and in this video I'm going to be showing you a simple way to make a nameplate. This is an easy project, and all you really need is a scroll saw, a drill, and an orbital sander. Although a belt sander and a router as well as some carving tools will make it just that extra bit more awesome. Now I'm going to be making this out of a cedar fence picket that I got at Lowe's for about $3, and I'm only using half of one, so this can be an inexpensive present for someone that they'll probably have for a lot longer than whatever else you were thinking about buying them. So it's a great gift idea, and it's the kind of gift that says, hey, when it's my birthday, give me some nice tools and I'll keep making you awesome things. So win-win. And with all that out of the way, let's make some dust. So the first thing I needed to do was to flatten out the boards. These come in pretty rough shape, and I use them for a lot of different things. So I just had this one, and it happened to be pretty badly cupped. If you don't have a plane, then you could just be sure to buy a board that's already flat and just sand the board smooth, and you don't need to do this step really. So I just used one that I already had, and I cut it into two 18-inch pieces, and I flattened out the one side by hand and then took it to the thickness planer to make sure it was parallel. Then I sat down and tried to get an idea of the dimensions I had to work with and figure out how big the lettering was going to be and map out the layout. And then I took that to this program called Inkscape, which is a free program that allows you to make what's called SVG files, which are scalable vector graphics, which I highly recommend you look into if you want to start making your own things on a scroll saw. Again, I use a program called Inkscape, but any SVG program will do. And I printed out that and the lettering for the sign, making sure that each letter overlapped a bit, so I was dealing with one piece instead of a bunch of letters. And I took that printout and I glued it to my piece of wood. And then I took it over to the scroll saw and cut it out. Now, a tip about cutting things like this out on a scroll saw is to remember that once you take off the paper, no one's ever going to see where the line is. It's okay if you wander offline a bit because no one will know where the line was. For something like this, I usually try to split the line, but as long as it's a nice smooth cut, it's going to look good. If you start to stray off course, just slowly and smoothly work your way back towards the line. Whatever you do, do not make a sudden and abrupt turn back towards the line, because then you'll go past the line and you'll have to turn back and your cut will look wobbly and childish really instead of smooth. So don't panic if you just stray a little bit. Just mosey on back to the line and it will look good. You need it to be clean and smooth more than accurate, because when you remove the paper, people won't see how accurate you were, but they'll be able to see a bunch of jaggedy, wobbly lines. So this is the part where the carving tools would come in handy. On the parts where the letters overlap, you want to make a shadow line so that it looks like one of the letters is on top of the other. And you could do this in many ways. You could do it with a chisel or a marking knife or a chip carving knife or a gouge or regular knife or some files, or you could sand it in if you have the patience for that, or you could paint it if you want to. But at this point you want to sand the name down, round off all the edges so they're nice and smooth, and do any decorative things to the name that you want to do. So next you need to work on the backdrop of the sign, and I'm just kind of working it out here. kind of just centering it and kind of just coming up with something. I didn't want anything too fancy, just something generic. I didn't want any straight lines neither, so I ended up just doing circles in the corners and then just curving the straight lines. And then I took it over to the scroll saw and cut it out. And I'm going kind of fast and loose with my lines here because I'm going to clean it all up on the belt sander. You can clean it up with an orbital sander if you don't have a belt sander, or you could just take the time to make cleaner cuts in the first place. For something like this, I always just cut outside my line and then sand to it. I find I get a lot nicer results that way, but you don't need a belt sander to make it good. It just helps. And now it's pretty much done. I set the name on the backdrop in the place where I want it to go, and I drill holes for some dowels. And I'm going to drill holes into both the name and the backdrop, but then I'm going to glue the dowels into just the name. So at this point I decided that I wanted to route out the edge of the backdrop using a cove bit. It just seemed like it needed something, but you could just round it off with some sandpaper if you got no other options. Then of course you finish sand everything to at least 220, and if you want to go for a natural color, you could put boiled linseed oil on it, or you could paint it at this point if you wanted to paint it, or stain it like I'm doing here. I'm going with an ebony stain for the backdrop and a blue stain for the name. They're the colors I had left over from when I made my workbench and my shop stool. Those are the two colors I chose, and so I had them, so I decided to use them on this project. But you can go anything, any color you want. They have a gunstock color, which is this good brown, which I used for my garden gate videos if you want to check those out, but I like that color too. But I chose black and blue. It's for a little boy, so what's better than black and blue? And then I clear coat them with a few coats of shellac, and I'm clear coating them separately because getting in between the letters and getting the letters nice if it's attached to the back would just be very difficult. So I clear coat them separately, and then since they're clear coated I can't use wood glue, so I use 5-minute epoxy, and I make sure that the dowels get some epoxy and the back of the letters get some epoxy, and then 5 minutes later I flush cut the dowels and then I shellac the back, and it's pretty much done. And here it is done. And as you can see, the client approved. So there's a nice simple project you can do as a gift or for yourself. And a lot of my family members saw this and said that they wanted one for themselves. So it looks like I won't be having to buy presents this year. I'll just have to buy a bunch of fence pickets. And you could do this project in a day if you're pressed for time, but I recommend doing it a little bit each day over a few days. But it doesn't take more than a few hours of actual work, and most of that is sanding. So hopefully this gives you a way to share what you love to do with the people you love, and gives them a way to have something from you for potentially the rest of their lives.
And that's the video. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe for more content like this, ring that bell for notifications, and maybe watch another one of my videos. You can follow me on Instagram if you want to see more of my work or some sneak peeks, and stay tuned for my website, which I'm currently building. So thank you very much for your time, and don't forget to support your local craftsmen or get out in your workshops and make your own dust. And together, we can make making great again.